In the world of tech, there's this constant tug of war, right? On one side, you've got your developers who need to move incredibly fast. And on the other, you've got compliance teams who are all about being cautious and secure. For years, these two worlds have basically been in conflict. But what if there was a way to finally build a bridge between them, using code itself? Let's dive into how that actually works.
So, to really appreciate the solution, we first have to understand the problem. And it's a big one, a really deep cultural divide between the world of compliance and the world of speed.
On one side, you've got the world of governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC. Just think about it. Manual audits, binders thick with evidence. It's all very methodical, very document heavy. And then you have the DevOps world. This place thrives on pure speed, powered by CI/CD pipelines and automated code delivery. One is all about careful, deliberate verification. The other is about lightning-fast automation. And historically, yeah, they have not gotten along.
So, that brings us to the million-dollar question. For any modern business to succeed, these two worlds absolutely have to connect. They need to work together. But how do you actually do it? How do you build that bridge without just slamming the brakes on innovation and slowing the entire company down?
Well, the catalyst for this big change actually comes from a kind of surprising place, an update to a global security standard. Let's take a look at the role of the new ISO/IEC 27001-2022, not as another chore, but as a real opportunity. The first and most obvious thing you'll notice in the 2022 update is that they've trimmed things down. We've gone from 114 different controls all the way down to 93. And this isn't just about deleting stuff, it's about simplifying and seriously modernizing the entire framework.
And those 93 controls, they've been completely reorganized. Instead of 14 kind of complicated domains, everything now fits neatly into 4 clear themes: organizational, people, physical, and technological. This new structure is fantastic because it aligns perfectly with how modern companies actually work, which makes it way easier to map these controls to the tools and processes we're already using.
But here is the absolute game changer. The new standard is much less prescriptive. It focuses on the outcome, like access must be controlled, instead of telling you the exact method you have to use. This shift is huge because it basically throws the door wide open for us to use code, tools, and automation to prove we're meeting our compliance goals.
This newfound flexibility is what lets us finally build that bridge between GRC and DevOps. And we're going to build it with the one language that DevOps already speaks fluently: code itself. We call this whole idea compliance as code. And it's pretty straightforward. You take your compliance and security rules and you embed them right into your development pipelines. And the result? You're generating evidence constantly, and you're enforcing your policies automatically every single time a developer pushes new code. You can break it down into 3 simple steps. First, you translate that high-level policy speak into automated rules a computer can actually understand. Second, you enforce those rules with automated checks right inside the pipeline. And third, you generate audit-ready evidence every single time that pipeline runs, not just once a year when the auditors show up.
Okay, so that all sounds good in theory, right? But what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's go inside a typical development pipeline and see this stuff in action.
All right, let's start with a classic: access control. Instead of some policy document sitting in a folder, your CI/CD pipeline becomes the enforcer. Who can access systems? That's handled by role-based access control right in your code repository, like GitHub or GitLab. How are credentials protected? The pipeline uses a secrets manager to safely inject them only when needed. Is access reviewed? Yep, every single action is logged automatically. Or let's take Operation Security. The policy says you have to find vulnerabilities. Well, in the pipeline, that means automatically scanning your code on every single commit with tools like SAST and DAST. You can scan your infrastructure as code files to find misconfigurations before they ever go live. And here's the best part. If a high-severity vulnerability is found, the build fails automatically. The risk is stopped dead in its tracks. And one last example, managing supplier risk, which today really means managing the risk of open source libraries. Are those libraries safe? The pipeline runs a software composition analysis, an SCA scan, to check your dependencies for you. Need to know what's in your software? It automatically generates a software bill of materials, or SBO. It can even block builds that try to pull in code with risky licenses you've decided to forbid. So we've seen the how, but let's zoom out and talk about the why. What's the real strategic business payoff for doing all this? Why does this really matter to the bottom line? The first massive benefit is that you shift from being reactive to being proactive about risk. When you have these checks in the pipeline, you catch issues the moment they're introduced. We call this shifting left, and it's so important because finding problems early is incredibly cheap and fast to fix, long before they can do any real damage in production. The second huge payoff is being audit-ready on demand. You know that frantic scramble to gather evidence before an audit? That audit season stress? It's over, gone. Every single pipeline run becomes a perfect, auditable, time-stamped report. Your evidence is always being generated, so you are always ready. And third, this approach transforms compliance from just a cost center into a real business advantage. When you can demonstrate your compliance automatically with hard data, you build deep trust with your customers. It can literally shorten your sales cycles because you can prove your security posture is solid. Trust becomes a competitive edge. So when you put all this together, it's clear we're talking about a fundamental transformation. ISO 27001 is no longer just a policy binder gathering dust on a shelf. It's becoming what it was always meant to be, a scalable, auditable engine that actually helps you ship secure software at speed. By building compliance directly into your code, you finally get the best of both worlds, robust security and the velocity your business needs to win.